Welcome to I Married a Melchizedek, episode 4, and going strong. I'm your host, Renata Duma, and as always, I'm here with the one and only Hazel Davies, Master Unity Bubble Facilitator, who, through this in-depth series, is not only sharing extremely valuable information about the communications that she and Jonathan, her Melchizedek hubby, were privy to, and more on unity themselves coming up. But she is also sharing what it was like being married to a Melchizedek, otherwise known as the wild cards of creation. More about that too, coming right up. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you are so inclined. Links to all I Married a Melchizedek shows will be listed on the Unity Bubble website at unitybubble.com for your convenience on a separate page in the drop-down menu. And if you're not familiar with the Unity Bubble, soon to be renamed, and more on that coming up too, you soon will be as we get deeper and deeper into our understanding of the entire Unity process in this and in future shows. So without further ado, here's Hazel. Hazel, welcome once again to your show.
Thank you, Renata. It's so interesting to go back and listen to these episodes and how, the chronology of it and how everything worked. And of course, it's all perfect, although at the time, of course, it doesn't feel that way sometimes. But it's been interesting for me too, as far as sharing what I know and what I have to share, but also is bringing back memories, certainly not sad ones at all, but just a lot of things that happened over so many years. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we kind of knew that we were going to stir up some stuff when we started this. Mm-hmm. And we also knew that we were going to bring forward a lot of wonderful, wonderful information that that generations of Unity facilitators will benefit from, as will their clients. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So speaking about the chronology you just mentioned, we've talked about the sacred bubble in quite some detail, but we never explored how it actually worked in the first place. We know that Jonathan created it because people were coming to him because they were complaining about having interferences. And they would say, well, I really feel like doing something, but then, the next day I'd revisit that and I don't feel like doing that anymore, but I know it's good for me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was his impetus for creating the sacred bubble. But how did it actually work? And then we're going to move into how that was the genesis of the Unity bubble. So I'll hand it over to you now.
So how it worked was because Jonathan was Melchizedek, that is a particularly a frequency. He carried that in his being. And in our system, that was what we termed as an 8th dimensional frequency band, which was Jonathan's natural way of being. So if a client came to Jonathan and was going through whatever it was they were going through, he could project his energy so that it became very uncomfortable for these lower frequency interferences. They're very low frequency. Right. So to them, it would be like fingers on a blackboard. So they would leave. Some of them easier than others. But then if the issue is still with the client, they're just going to come back again because there was nothing lasting. Only within Jonathan's presence would they leave. And then the minute that they would leave the session, their issues would still be there. Their own frequency would still be there. So these beings would just come back again. It's because the doorway was open. Right. Through the issues of fear, shame, guilt, and all that. So the reason to how it worked was to provide this Melchizedek energy as a lasting presence for the client so that they would be constantly and permanently protected. There's a protective shell.
Right. Perfect. And so now, how did that, and why did that evolve into the unity bubble?
So what Jonathan found was people were very anxious to get rid of their interferences, but they weren't that keen on doing their own work, which was to find out why they had these issues in the first place.
Right.
And that was always Jonathan's focus, because he was always about self-mastery. So getting rid of the issues that are really not yours in the first place, but you've got them for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So that was always his focus. So the sacred bubble gave the client the opportunity to really look at their issues without the interference. It basically gave them back their free will. It is a free will universe. And we can choose to keep our patterns if we want, or we can choose to do something about it and release them. But it became obvious to Jonathan that not everyone, just enough to make Jonathan aware of, this isn't quite doing exactly what I would want it to do. I want to give them the protection so that then we can really get down and dirty and look at the issues. So that's how he used the sacred bubble, the shell of the sacred bubble, which that's all it was, just a protective shell. Mm-hmm. And then we worked at perfecting the inside of the bubble with a collective of beings who I can tell you about.
Right, and you're referring to the collective, otherwise known as unity.
Yes, they presented themselves as unity. It is not the entirety of unity consciousness. So it is a certain branch, and I can actually, because I thought maybe you were going to ask me this. So, see how psychic I am.
Just a little bit.
Just a bit. So I pulled out, because I asked them after we had been working for a while, and we had Archangel Michael, and we had Jesus, and we had Mother Mary, and we had a lot of beings that have no names, because some are up there, some of them don't have any names. They're just specific energies. Mm-hmm. So they were giving us all this information, and I'm writing it all down, and then so it got confusing. So what came through was, we will join together and we will talk as one. And so it made it easier. And that's why we call ourselves unity. And that's why it was called the unity bubble. So when I asked, who is this unity, Jonathan? Like, what are we dealing with here? We need to make sure that we're, on the right track and all that. So this is what they gave me when I asked. They said, we speak as one. We are a collective of conscious beings brought together to focus our attention on the condition of humanity and the evolutionary unfolding of consciousness. We span all levels. We are inclusive. Our purpose in coming together is to find a simple solution to negativity and misalignment, and to assist in the development of a process that would end imposed suffering, starting at the human level. This creation is for the good of all who wish to partake of it. We are unity. So that's what they told me, which that's who they are.
Yes, exactly. So to clarify, you said earlier that the Melchizedek energy was what was the makeup of the sacred bubble, correct?
Yes.
So now that we have the unity bubble, how do you describe the creation or finding thereof? So I'm saying that if the unity bubble is obviously still based in Melchizedek energy, there are other aspects to it, correct? So were those aspects something that was created, or were they uncovered, so to speak?
Well, the unity bubble itself is an intelligence of its own. The the outer shell, which is the sacred bubble, is the 8th dimensional shell. And then the inside, okay, so how would we describe that? Because it's not specifically 8th dimensional. It is to bring that space into purity so that it does not support anything that is out of alignment. So it is based on fundamental values and principles. So anything that is less than that was taken out. So basically what happened was Jonathan took the energy of the mass consciousness. It sounds ridiculous, but this is what we did.
Not to me, Hazel. Not to me, and I'm sure not to our.
Okay, so he took the mass consciousness, the energy of the mass consciousness, and everything that was in it, placed it in the middle of our living room, put a sacred bubble around it. And then through a process of removals and infusions, and it took months, it took 8 or 9 months to do this every day.
Right.
We were directed by unity. Take this out, put this in, take this out, put this in, many times to get it to the state that it was only supportive of these positive fundamental values. It's got nothing to do with any kind of religious upbringing or anything like that. It is pure. Is about purity of how the perfect human, the perfect environment for a human to evolve into. So having that, and then when it was completed, they told Jonathan to seal it. So when you energetically seal it, it then becomes an intelligence of its own. Now, I mean, not that I could do something like that, but Jonathan could do that because he's a Melchizedek. So then they said, okay, now you have sealed it, and now give one to yourself and give one to Hazel, and then we will monitor you, and we will. I mean, they monitored us for the entire time of the creation.
Right.
So it wasn't something that Jonathan. It was his creation, but he was taking everything that is in alignment and imprinting it into the bubble. The bubble just is. It is an intelligence. It doesn't do anything. It's not it's not active in a way that the bubble's going to do your work for you. Certainly not. But it is going to show you your own issues because it won't support. So the process of having the unity bubble is if you have an issue that comes up, because your life's going to show you whatever your issues are. Mm-hmm. When you release that particular issue, and there's many layers and many issues, when you release whatever you can release, the bubble dissolves it because it can't support it.
Exactly.
It has no way of supporting it. So it's not that the bubble does your work for you, but when you release, you are lessening all the dysfunctional patterns step by step, layer by layer.
Right. Well, and it's also this is the most fascinating of all of the information about the unity bubble, the unity process. Ever since I became aware of it and began studying and did the process with Jonathan himself, this aspect was always the most fascinating for me, how this actually transpired. I think it is the most fascinating aspect for anyone. And I guess what my sort of understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is so that once somebody is open and willing and receives the unity bubble, this 8th dimensional, for lack of better descriptive, it becomes the new frequency that you're carrying. So anything that is within that is resonating at a lower frequency sort of comes up against, and I don't like because that sounds very dualistic, but if you know what I'm saying, I mean, you can't, it's like oil and water, right? You can't mix them. The oil will not support the water, and the water won't support the oil. So let's say if the unity bubble is the oil, then if there's any contaminated water, right, it's not going to support it, and that water will in fact evaporate or dissolve, or however it gets dissipated by the frequency of the unity bubble. Is that correct?
It is correct. It's always up to the individual as to what is available to be released. Because there are some, there's so many layers to even, sorry, my printer is just deciding to do something.
Maybe Jonathan's sending us.
I think I'm getting a message from somewhere. Who would know? Sorry. So it is still up to the individual. Okay, so it's all about doing your own work. Now, there will be a feeling of comfort. There will be a feeling of being at home when one gets the unity bubble, because, as Unity said, when I asked who they were, we span all levels. We are inclusive. That means that they support everything up to there's no point in going further than 8th dimension, because it's just not relevant here. So 8th dimensional frequencies are all included in the unity bubble. So if, like, my frequency, my home frequency is 7th dimension in our system, whatever that is in another system, I don't know. But I'm a 7th dimensional being in our system. So that 7th dimensional frequency is included in the bubble. So when I get my bubble, I resonate with that 7th dimensional frequency, which is lovely for me, because Earth is a very strange place to me.
Oh, you think?
You think, right? What am I doing here? So there is that comfort, and so that anybody, whether they're 6th dimensional, 5th dimensional, or whether they're what we call a reincarnate, as humans on the reincarnational cycle, which is the 3rd, 4th, keep doing it over and over again. From a 7th dimensional frequency, I don't have to come back and do it again. It's a choice for me. When I pass from here and I go back home, I may come back and I may not, but it'll be my choice if I do or not. I'm not in that reincarnational cycle. And I've gone totally off on a tangent here.
That's what this is all about. Isn't it wonderful? I love it. Well, but I love
there's
that.
So much. I said to you before we started, I said, there's so much in my head today. It's just like I can't get it all.
Oh, that's great. I'm rolling with it. So, all right. So let's just roll with this then. So for example, say somebody gets their unity bubble and they are a 5th dimensional person. So they're going to feel somewhat expansive, because they're now no longer I think we're moving into 4 now, but let's say for the bulk of the time that Jonathan was doing his thing, and and we were all doing our thing, was 3, right? So they're out of 3, they're moved into 5 now, and then I've heard you say and talk about some of your clients and some of the people that I've worked with, that because they started out at such a high frequency already, they're not on the reincarnation cycle in 3 and 4, but that through the actual process of the unity bubble, their home frequency would rise. So for example, they may have come into the process as a 5th dimension, but as they progress through the entire unity bubble process, their frequency may rise to being 6th.
Well, okay, so there's 2 things here. So even if they come in as a 5th dimensional, 6th dimensional, 7th dimensional being, it is not an automatic thing that they are going to then, become or embody that 5th dimensional frequency. They still have to do their work. I was seventh dimensional. I had a lot of work to do. I was not suddenly catapulted into living at seventh dimensional frequency. No, 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 no. It is always about you will only rise the frequency or the vibration as you do your issues, as you get rid of your issues, because the issues are holding it down. So it's not an automatic, oh, let's get a bubble and we'll all just, rise up and out of here.
Right.
It's still work. That's why it is work. And sometimes it's
yeah. Oh, it's a heck of a lot of work. But that being said, the second part of what I was talking about, it is possible that through the entire process that one could actually elevate their home frequency. Correct?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I think so, because I just working with some people that who came to me extremely, already advanced beings, and coming in, they did not have the same kind of experience with the initial acceptance or merging with the unity bubble, but the tail end of the process became extremely profound for them, and things started to how do we say make more sense. They were more easily able to cognate on an incredibly high level.
Yeah.
And so that was the feedback that I got. So
because when they get clearer and clearer and clearer, they can access more. They can access higher truths, and broaden, is an expansion. So yes, I mean, these frequencies, there are frequency bands. It's not one little line that all of a sudden one day you're into, in 6, and then you do one thing and you jump into 7. It's a process. It goes again, step by step, as above, so below, so that you're going to go up and up and up. And then when you reach the very top of, say, 6, you're suddenly in 7th. But it's not like you get an email like my printer's telling
or a printer.
Congratulations, you're in 7. It doesn't happen like that. And I have had clients who come in as a 6th dimensional, operate as a 6th dimensional. 6th dimensional beings are very they like experience. It's a group mind, right? And they're very interested in exploring. They just want to explore and try all kinds of things. 7th dimensional beings don't do that. They don't come down very often. And they're about flow. They're about the flow of things. So they're really not that interested in space. They do space, not space like that's,
Right.
Space.
Yeah, well, and those are more conversations that we're going to have, because I mean, as you're speaking, I've got 75 different questions there. And we're going to go to a completely different, place than where we planned on today, but there's nothing wrong with that. No, that's
you might be editing a bit.
No, it's okay. It's all good. It's all good. I'm sure our listeners are enjoying this just as much as I am anyway. So getting back on track. So because I absolutely have to ask something more personal about Jonathan.
No, yeah.
That's my job. Tell us a little bit more about the path that he traveled before his Melchizedek epiphany. So I know that he wore quite a few hats, and I thought I changed my hats often, but I think Jonathan took the cake on that. So I'm just going to let you talk about that.
He did many things, and all because he was attempting to figure out who the heck he was, and all this. And he would do something until he had no more interest in it. He had an incredible memory for things. And I questioned him on that. I said, how do you remember all this? And he said, well, I only remember it if I'm interested. So he would, he was fascinating because he could always find something to talk to anybody. It didn't matter who they were, if there was some highfalutin, business suit guy or, the garbage man on the street, whatever. It didn't matter to him. He could always find, because he was interested. And I said, how do you do that? And he said, well, there's always something interesting to talk to people about. Okay. I mean, I was like, I don't know how this works. But he was a stockbroker. I mean, you can imagine how that one went.
No.
He didn't last very long at that.
Yeah.
He did things. Well, he worked as for the post office. He was, a postie for a lot and he liked that because he was on his own. He could keep his own time. He drove a truck for a while. He was a goldsmith. Oh yeah, he made this for me.
Oh really? Wow. I've never seen any of the pieces he's made. Oh, you're gonna have to send me a picture so we can put up a close up.
But he loved goldsmithing. He could, because he could talk to the metals and then. Okay, now I guess one day. Yeah, well, yeah, well, he used to bend spoons, I had to buy a whole new set of cutlery because Jonathan was on his spoon bending and every spoon in the drawer was twisted in some weird shape. And I said, it's great that you can do this. Can you turn them back again so we could use them? They were like those, those baby spoons that have the turn, but these were all twisted. And yeah, he liked to do that. What else did he do? Oh, he liked to change the flavor of water. He'd sometimes give me lemon water. He'd say, what kind of water would you like tonight? And know that he was doing, water into wine, although that would have probably been, good thing. But it was, I would usually say, lemon's good. And he would just do his thing with the water and I'd taste it and it was tasting of lemon water. Like, how does this happen,
Okay, that's the first time I've heard of that.
I mean, this was the manifestation of lots and lots of little things but he also had his issues when he'd get mad, not necessarily with Unity themselves, but usually with Stan and Ollie.
That I know.
And he'd kind of swear at them and say, why don't you give me some help? I'm the one down here. And then one day he said, did I volunteer for this? And there's kind of silence, and then they said, well, we stepped back. In other words, he pulled the short straw. And he did ask. He said, why is it me? Like, why was it me? And why not one of you two that came down? And they said, you had you could develop the personality of not completion, but stick-to-itness. I don't know what the word is.
Right. Tenacity.
The tenacity, yes. You would always see that the job was done, no matter how difficult. It's because it didn't give Jonathan much comfort. But they did help. Stan and Ollie helped a lot. What else? So stockbroker, yes, he put people's he did windows for a time. Lots and lots of different jobs that he had. And in
terms of his spiritual growth.
Well, he investigated all kinds of religions. He was in the Mormon Church for a while. I mean, he loved the Mormon Church. It resonated with him probably because of the Melchizedek thing, and so he was a high priest in the Mormon Church. He was in charge of all the Sunday school for a very large area. So he would speak, every Sunday or whenever the meetings were, just guiding people. And people would come to him this was before he knew who he was.
Right.
They would come to him for guidance, for mentorship. And then it didn't work anymore. just, he got to, I think he got enough. He couldn't go any further. I think he realized that there was a barrier that was going to be, he couldn't get beyond that.
With them.
And then, with them. So it just didn't work. And then at that time, he was doing a lot of educational kinesiology,
right?
Which is the educate through the brain gym,
right.
Neuro-linguistic, programming, stuff like that, which Jonathan could do that. He was trained in that. But then he found out that he didn't need all the movements and the things that entailed. He could just click his fingers and do the same thing, which was the beginning. I remember he went to Newfoundland, and I think he was at a drumming workshop or something with one of his, I don't know what it was. Anyway, there was a bunch of people that wanted to do a session with him before he left, but he only had a few hours. And normally his sessions, were, an hour to 2 hours each. And he had 12, 15 people who wanted a session. He didn't have time. So what he did was he asked them, that's your issue. Would you like to get rid of it now? Like right now, we don't have a lot of time. And if they said yes, he'd basically click his fingers and that pattern would be shifted for them. So and then I remember him coming back from Newfoundland and saying, I've just talked myself out of a job, because he was actually making money, having clients come to do the educate. Well, now he didn't need it. He could just basically ask them if they wanted to change that. And if they said yes, he would just change that pattern for them. So then he's like, well, now what? It was a journey. It really was a journey. He used to say that when he was working with people, he felt like he had moose antlers, because sometimes his head would be like, he imagine these moose antlers on top of his head.
Well, and it's funny. Remember when I did the trailer for this show and I gave him antenna, right?
Yeah.
You said, oh my God, Renata, he used to say that he felt like he had moose. So I had no idea, but
yeah.
Yeah. So I gave him the moose antlers that, antenna that he always felt that he had. So there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, we were going to do the big reveal today on the new Unity Bubble website, but we have gone so far over time. But you know what? I think this was an incredible show. Thank you for sharing all of that wonderful information. That was really, everyone. That was super spontaneous. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity. And thank you. Thank you, Hazel. It's amazing. So we'll do it. Yeah, we'll talk about the new website next time.
Okay.
So everyone will just have to keep them in suspense till next.
Well, I guess it's all perfect timing, right? Divine time.
It is all perfect and divine. Thank you. So tune in again with Hazel and myself in 2 Tuesdays on I Married a Melchizedek and what happens to those spoons in the drawer.
Thank you, Renata.
Thank you so much. I'm your host, Renata Duma, wishing you beautiful days ahead in the full flow of all creation, full of joy, health, true abundance, and positive outcomes. Hazel, we did it. Thank you.
We did it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Till next time. Bye for now.
Bye.